Imagine a man carrying a coffin on his back. Inside that coffin isn't just a pair of oversized handguns. It's the physical manifestation of every regret he's ever had. Most people just look at the cover art for Gungrave and think it's just some shit 2000s PSP anime remake because it is based off of a game. So they expect it to be mindless, gory, and action-packed. But Gungrave really isn't an action show. Despite its action sequences, it's more like a 26 episode long autopsy of a friendship. It's the story of two men, Brandon Heat and Harry MacDowell, who started in the same gutter but looked at the stars and saw two completely different things. To Harry, the stars were a destination, a peak he had to climb to so that no one could ever look down on him again. To Brandon, the stars were just a backdrop for the people standing next to him. One man wanted to own the world. The other just wanted to protect his piece of it. And in the world of the Code of the Iron, these two desires cannot coexist. When you watch Gungrave, you aren't watching a battle between good and evil. You're watching the collision of two different ways of being human. One man refused to change, and the other refused to stop changing. Gungrave, released in 2003, is a rare anomaly in anime history. A video game adaptation that surpasses its source material by shifting genres entirely. While the PlayStation 2 game was a run-and-gun arcade shooter, the anime, produced by Studio Madhouse during their golden era, reimagined the story as a Shakespearean crime drama. This is especially important because character designs were handled by Yasuhiro Nightow, who handled Trigun, by the way. You can almost see the DNA of Vash the Stampede in Brandon's silhouette. But where Trigun is vibrant and chaotic, Gungrave is muted, heavy, and noir-inspired. I also kind of want to briefly go over the soundtrack, which you'll be hearing throughout this video. The soundtrack of Tsuneo, Imahori, I believe I said that right, I'm sorry. The jazz, almost Godfather-esque tones thrown in there, with the melancholic acoustic guitar, gives it, that Godfather funeral procession vibe. And it's so good. The first 8 episodes of Gungrave are a masterclass in atmospheric storytelling. They don't start with the supernatural, they start with the sun. This is the street era, a sun-drenched, dusty memory of a time before the world became cold and gray. In these episodes, we aren't watching high-ranking mobsters or undead soldiers. We are watching 5 kids who think they're invincible. Brandon, Harry, and their friends, Kenny, Nathan, and Eddie, which are a makeshift family at this point. And they live in a rundown shack. Like as if you were in a college apartment, living in like a trap house with all your buddies. Yeah, that's what it felt like. They steal to eat, and they spend their afternoons dreaming of a future that they wish they could have. It feels less like a crime show and more like a coming-of-age story, similar to the early chapters of Berserk or Vinland Saga, where the innocence of the characters make the coming tragedy feel inevitable. Harry is the heart of this group. In these early episodes, his ambition is almost innocent. He wants to be free, which to a street punk just means having enough money to buy his friends a decent meal, keep them off the radar of the real gangs. He's a dreamer, and his charisma is the glue that keeps the group together. Brandon, meanwhile, is the shadow. He doesn't dream, he just exists to make sure Harry's dreams don't get him killed. He spends his time at a local orphanage, watching Mardia from a distance. Their love is quiet, expressed through shared silence and small gestures. At this point in the story, Brandon is still human. He has a future, he has a girl who loves him, and a brother who would do anything for him. But the world of Gungrave is not kind to dreamers. The day the music stopped, the turning point, the moment the street era dies, is pretty brutal. The group accidentally crosses paths with the professional gang, and in a single afternoon, their world is dismantled. Kenny, Nathan, and Eddie, the boys who represented the group's humanity and their connection to a normal life, are murdered. This isn't just a plot point, it's literally a psychological reset for Harry and Brandon. For Harry, the death of his friends is proof that being a small-time player is a death sentence. He realizes that in the city, you are either the foot or the boot. He stops wanting to be free, and starts wanting to be the one in charge of everyone else's freedom. For Brandon, the trauma is very different. He realizes that his strength wasn't enough to protect the people he cared about. He enters a state of functional shock that he never truly leaves. When Harry suggests they join Millennion, the very organization that rules the city, Brandon agrees. Not because he wants power, but because he's lost his North Star. If he can't protect his friends in the light, he'll protect Harry in the dark. As they walk towards the massive obsidian towers of Millennium, the color palette of the show shifts. The warm oranges and yellows of the slums are replaced by the cold blues, grays, and deep blacks of the corporate mafia. They meet Big Daddy. Yes, that is his gang name. Yeah, he's Big Daddy, bro. A man who carries himself like a king from a forgotten era. He sees something in both Harry and Brandon. Harry's visionary mind and Brandon's terrifying silent competence. He accepts them into the Coat of Iron, promising them a new family to replace the one they lost. But as they step through those doors, the tragedy has already set in stone. By trying to find a way to never lose anyone again, they've walked into a machine that requires them to give up the very things, mercy, love, and identity, that made their original family worth having. They think they are joining Millennium to survive, but don't actually realize they're signing their own death certificates. Or warrants, are they called warrants or certificates? I don't know. The transition from the sun-drenched slums to the sterile marbled floor isn't just a change in scenery. It's a funeral for the boys Brandon and Harry used to be. As they descend into the heart of the world's most powerful crime syndicate, the warmth of the street era is replaced by the Code of Iron, a set of rules that promises protection, but demands your soul as collateral. In the syndicate, Brandon Heat finds a new kind of silence. If his quietness in the slums was born of peace, his silence in Millennium is born of professional necessity. He becomes the sweeper, the organization's elite assassin. He is the man who cleans up the messes that Big Daddy's family can't acknowledge. Brandon doesn't kill out of malice or greed. He kills because he has accepted Big Daddy's philosophy, that Millennium is the only thing keeping the city from falling into total chaos. To Brandon, the Code of Iron is a religion. He becomes a ghost, drifting through the ranks, his hands permanently stained. This is where we see the ultimate tragedy of his character. To protect the peace of the people he loves, he has to make himself a person they can no longer recognize. His relationship with Mardia becomes the casualty of this transition. He watches her from the shadows as she's taken in by Big Daddy, living a life of luxury and safety, a life he provided for her with the blood on his hands. He realizes he can never be with her, not because he doesn't love her, but because he believes a sweeper has no right to a woman's light. He chooses the cold dark of the syndicate over the warmth of a home, all to keep that home safe. While Brandon becomes the syndicate's shadow, Harry, on the other hand, becomes its lightning. Harry doesn't just want to be a soldier, he wants to be the general. He realizes early on that the Code of Iron is an outdated relic. To Harry, Big Daddy's honor is a weakness, a ceiling that keeps the organization from reaching its quote-unquote true potential. Harry begins an ascent that is brilliant as it is terrifying. He isn't just killing rivals, he's building a shadow government within Millennium. He recruits the 4 executives, men who don't care about honor, only power. He starts looking into forbidden technologies, specifically the Necrolyze project, because he understands that human loyalty is fickle, but a dead man's obedience is absolute. The wedge between the two friends begins as a hairline fracture. Harry still loves Brandon, but he starts to view Brandon's absolute loyalty to Big Daddy as a liability. He tries to pull Brandon into his inner circle, to make him part of the new Millennium, but Brandon's eyes are always fixed on the code. This era also introduces Bunji Kugashira, a hot-headed, hyper-competent hitman who looks up to Brandon as his mentor. Bunji is essential to the story because he represents what Brandon could have been if he had a bit more ego. A man who loves the thrill of the hunt. Bunji's presence quite literally highlights Brandon's isolation. While Bunji fights for the rush and the respect, Brandon just fights because he's just a tool. Their relationship is one of the few echoes of the street era left in the show, a brotherhood born of combat. But even this is tainted, because Bunji's loyalty eventually aligns with Harry's ambition, setting the stage for a future where the student will have to face the master. By the time they reach the top of the syndicate, Brandon and Harry are the most powerful men in the city, essentially. But they've never been further apart from one another. They stood on the balcony of Millennium's headquarters, looking down at the city they conquered. Harry sees a kingdom waiting for a king. Brandon sees a peace that must be defended at any cost. The air between them is heavy with the things they aren't saying. Harry knows that to take the final step, to kill Big Daddy, to seize the throne, he will eventually have to go through the man who's protected him since they were children. And Brandon, deep in his silent heart, knows that the lightning he's been following is about to burn the house down. The elevator ride in episode 13 is the most important sequence in the entire series. It is a masterclass in claustrophobic tension. In any other anime, this would be a screaming match or high-octane brawl. But here, it's a quiet, devastating conversation between two men who have run out of road. The elevator serves as a metaphor for their entire lives. They started in the basement, the slums, and now they have spent years climbing together. Now they are seconds away from the penthouse, the absolute peak of power. But as the floor numbers tick upward, the air in the car becomes unbreathable. Harry is at the height of his charisma here, but it's more like a desperate charm at this point. He lays it all out for Brandon. He tells him that Big Daddy's old, and his code of iron is a cage, and that the city belongs to those with the vision to take it. Harry isn't just asking for a partner in a coupe. He's begging for validation. He needs the one person he respects to tell him that his ambition is righteous. He offers Brandon everything, a seat at the right hand in the future of the new king, safety from Maria, and a future where they never have to be afraid again. To Harry, this is the ultimate act of love. He's trying to save Brandon from a dying era, but Brandon stays silent. It's a silence that screams. For Brandon, Big Daddy isn't just a boss. He's the man who gave them a soul when they were nothing. To betray Big Daddy is to betray the very reason they joined Millennium in the first place. Brandon realizes in this moment that the lightning he has been following for a decade has turned into a storm and is going to destroy everything they built. He looks at Harry, not with anger, but with the profound, deep sadness. He realizes that the boy from the slums, the one who just wanted to buy his friends a meal, is gone. In his place is a man who would burn the world just to prove he can. When Brandon finally spoke, it was to refuse. He wouldn't join the coup. He won't turn his gun on the man who gave them a home. Harry's reaction is a psychological breakdown, disguised as cold-blooded execution. He pulls his gun and shoots Brandon. He kills Brandon because he can't live in a world where Brandon's looking down on him. He would rather have Brandon be dead and loyal in memory than alive and witness to Harry's moral bankruptcy. As the elevator doors open on the top floor, Harry walks out while Brandon was shot out of I don't know how tall this building was. It was lots of floors, but he was dead on impact when he hit the ground. Harry has achieved his dream. He's the king of Millennium. But the price of the throne was the only person who actually loved him. The show then does something brilliant. It goes completely cold. We skip 13 years into the future. The vibrant, complex world of the flashback era is now replaced by a landscape of gray, steel, and monsters. Harry is now Bloody Harry. He has everything he ever wanted, but he is a hollow man. He's surrounded by necrolyzers, undead soldiers who can't talk back, can't judge him, and can't offer him a single shred of the brotherhood he lost in that elevator. He's built a city that is technically perfect and spiritually dead. And then a rumor starts to spread. A silent giant has appeared, carrying a heavy metal coffin and two pistols that sound like thunder. The sweeper has returned, but he isn't human anymore. He's beyond the grave, and he's coming to finish the conversation that started in that elevator 13 years ago. The jump forward 13 years feels not very warm it feels like a cold blizzard hitting you in the face. The necrolyzers are his new family. They don't have codes and they don't have hearts. The only thing they have are appetites, apparently. Then, the silence of the city is broken by the sound of heavy metal dragging against pavement. Brandon Heat is gone, and his place is beyond the grave. Well, grave for short. He's a towering, silent golem of a man, sustained by a machine, and driven by a singular, lingering directive. Protect Mika, and destroy the nightmare. Mika, by the way, is Maria's daughter. Grave carries the Cerberus pistols, massive coffin-shattering handguns, and a literal funeral casket strapped to his back. But this isn't a revenge story that many would think it is. It's more like a cleaning up phase. Grave isn't hunting Harry's executives because he hates them. He's hunting them because he's the only one left who remembers who they were before they sold their souls for power. Grave's journey to Harry requires him to cut down all of his former allies, sadly. The men who helped him build Millennion. Each fight is tragedy disguised as an action sequence. Bear Walken, the legendary assassin, Brandon's old mentor. Bear stayed loyal to Harry, not out of some love, but out of a grim samurai-like devotion to the hierarchy. He allowed himself to be turned into a superior to keep fighting. He lost his humanity in the process. When Grave kills him, it isn't an execution, it's a release. It's Brandon telling his teacher that his shift is finally over. Bob Poundmax and Balabird Lee. These men represent the sheer rot of Harry's inner circle. They became monsters to indulge their gluttony and their cruelty. When Grave guns them down, he's effectively pruning the dead branches off a tree that used to be a family. And the most painful confrontation, I cried at this, was the one with Bunji. Out of everyone in this new millennium, Bunji was the only one who still feels human, still calls Brandon brother. He knows Harry has become a monster, and he knows the Necrolyze project is an abomination. But Bunji stays. Why? Because when Brandon died in that elevator, Harry was the only one left to give Bunji a place to belong. Their duel is the fastest, most kinetic fight in the series, but the subtext is heavy with grief. Bunji is fighting to prove that his path was right, even though he knows it wasn't. When Grave finally delivers the killing blow, he isn't just killing a rival, he's burying the last person who truly looked up to him. Throughout this hunt, Grave is accompanied by Mika. She's the only source of the color in a gray world. For Grave, she's the living code. He cannot speak to her, and his undead heart cannot beat for her. But his every action is a shield. The coffin on his back isn't just for his weapons. It represents the weight of the 13 years he missed. It's the weight of Maria's death, Big Daddy's fall, and the betrayal of a brother. Every step Grave takes is heavy because he's literally carrying the past toward a confrontation with the man who tried to delete it. Harry sits in his high tower, watching his empire crumble, one superior at a time. He realizes that you can kill a man, and you can even bring him back as a monster, but you can never kill the loyalty that man felt. The elevator is coming back down, and this time, the doors are going to stay open. The final episode of Gungrave is titled Dusk of the Razors, which is perhaps the most quiet finale in action anime history. It doesn't end with a city-leveling explosion or a triumphant hero standing over a defeated villain. It ends with two tired, broken men in a room, finally forced to look at the wreckage of their lives. The supernatural elements, the monsters, the superiors, they all fall away. By the time Grave reaches Harry MacDowell's inner sanctum, the King of Millennium has already lost everything. His empire is a graveyard. His 4 executives are dead. His city is in ruins. Harry isn't a god anymore. He's just a man who realized too late that you can't build a home out of corpses. When Grave finally enters the room, he doesn't immediately pull the trigger. Instead, the show strips away the horror and the sci-fi. For a moment, the gray skin of the necrolyzed monster fades, and we see Brandon heat again. And Harry, stripped of his expensive suits and his bravado, looks like the terrified orphan from the slums. They end up back in a setting that mirrors their youth. The guns are empty, the heavy metal coffin is cast aside. Harry breaks down, not out of fear of his death, but out of the crushing weight of his own loneliness. He confesses the truth. He's been running for 13 years. He killed Brandon because Brandon was his conscience. He killed the only person who truly loved him because he couldn't handle being judged by someone so pure. In any other story, this would be the moment of vengeance. But Brandon Heat was never about revenge. He was always about the coat of iron. As the authorities and rival gangs close in to finish off the fallen king, Brandon does the only thing he's ever known how to. He protects Harry. Grave isn't an undead assassin, he's the shield, one last time. He doesn't forgive Harry. Forgiveness is too simple for a tragedy this deep. But he refuses to let Harry die alone. He stays with him. They sit together as the sun sets. Two ghosts of a family that destroyed itself. Gungrave leaves us with a haunting question. Was it worth it? Harry's ambition gave him the world, but it cost him his soul. Brandon's loyalty gave him a purpose, but it cost him his life. The series ends on a profound melancholy, reminding us that time is a thief, and power is a lie. The only thing that actually matters, and the only thing that survives the necrolyze, is the connection we have with the people standing next to us in the gutter. Gungrave is a masterpiece, because it understands that the loudest sounds don't come from gunfire. They're the silences between two friends who've realized they've gone way too far to ever go back home now. It's a funeral for an era, and one of the most human stories I've ever seen. Thank you guys so much for watching. When I was recording this, it was daytime, so it got dark. I'm sorry. Another long, very difficult project for me to take on. Very similar to my Darker Than Black episode, where I completely covered that series in my own words. I strongly encourage you to go check that out, because Darker Than Black and Gungrave are both crime syndicate shows. Sounds like up to your speed, huh? Yeah, you should go check that out. And you should also subscribe and like this video, like a bunch. Thank you. I'll see you in the next one.